Welcome, weary traveler, to a journey through the annals of time, a gentle descent into the echoes of empires long past. Tonight, we turn our gaze to the heart of a civilization that shaped the very foundations of our modern world, ancient Rome. Forget for a moment the bustling anxieties of your day, the insistent demands of the present. Allow your mind to drift, to settle into the quiet rhythm of history unfolding, as we explore a world both familiar and profoundly alien. Imagine, if you will, the soft glow of oil lamps piercing the Roman twilight, the distant murmur of a city that never truly slept. We will not rush through the grand narratives of emperors and conquests, but rather, we will linger in the subtle textures of everyday existence, in the quiet struggles and unexpected comforts of lives lived millennia ago. Our destination is not merely a place on a map, but a state of mind, a gentle invitation to contemplation. So, breathe deeply, let your shoulders relax, and prepare to step back in time to a Rome that might surprise you. A Rome where the scent of sewage often mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread. A Rome where survival was an art and grandeur a fleeting dream. Our journey begins not in the marble halls of power, but in the cramped, shadowed confines of an insula, a Roman apartment block, before the first blush of dawn. Imagine yourself stirring on a rough pallet, the air thick with the scent of stale cooking fires, unwashed bodies, and the faint, persistent dampness that seeped through the thin walls. The sounds of your neighbors, a symphony of coughs, murmurs, and the rustle of early risers are your constant companions. Light, when it comes, is a grudging visitor, filtering through small, grimy windows, revealing the worn fabric of your simple tunic and the rough texture of the communal living space. Let us delve deeper into the Insula itself, this vertical city within a city. These multi-story apartment buildings, often reaching 5 or 6 floors, were the primary residences for the vast majority of Rome's population. Unlike the sprawling villas of the wealthy, insulae were built quickly and often cheaply, constructed from a mix of timber, brick, and concrete. The ground floor was typically reserved for shops and workshops, bustling with activity from dawn till dusk. Above these, the apartments rose, becoming progressively less desirable and more precarious with each ascending floor. The higher you lived, the further you were from the street-level amenities, and the greater the risk of collapse or fire. Imagine the narrow, winding staircases, often dark and poorly maintained, echoing with the footsteps of hundreds of residents. There was no privacy in these buildings. Every sound, every scent, every argument or celebration permeated the thin walls, creating a constant, inescapable hum of human existence. Life within these insulae was a masterclass in communal living. Water, if available at all, was usually from a communal tap in the courtyard or a public fountain nearby, meaning daily trips with heavy amphorae. Sanitation was rudimentary at best. While some wealthier ground-floor apartments might have had rudimentary latrines, most residents relied on public facilities or, more commonly, chamber pots emptied directly into the street below. This practice, while unsanitary, was a daily reality, contributing significantly to the pervasive odors of the city. The lack of proper ventilation meant that the air inside was often stagnant, thick with the smells of cooking, unwashed bodies, and the ever-present damp. Heating in the colder months was provided by small charcoal braziers, a constant fire hazard in buildings predominantly made of wood. As the city slowly awakens, you descend from your precarious dwelling, perhaps several stories high, into the narrow, winding streets below. Here, the true sensory assault of Roman life begins. The cobblestones, slick with refuse and morning dew, demand careful footing. The air, heavy and humid, carries a cacophony of sounds. The creak of wooden carts, the shouts of vendors hawking their wares, the bleating of goats, and the incessant chatter of 1,000 waking lives. And the smells, oh, the smells. The pungent aroma of human waste, the acrid tang of charcoal smoke, the sweet decay of discarded fruit, all interwoven with the occasional waft of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. You learn to navigate this olfactory landscape, to filter out the unpleasant, to focus on the task at hand. Your morning commute is a perilous dance. The streets, designed for foot traffic, are often choked with speeding carts, their drivers heedless of pedestrians. These carts, often laden with goods for the markets or building materials for the city's endless construction projects, moved at a surprising speed, their wooden wheels rattling loudly on the uneven paving stones. There were no sidewalks as we know them. Pedestrians and vehicles shared the same narrow thoroughfares, creating a constant state of near collision. You learn to press yourself against the grimy walls, to anticipate the sudden lurch of a laden wagon, to avoid the contents of chamber pots, emptied with casual disregard from upper-story windows, splashing onto the street below. It is a constant vigilance, a subtle tension that hums beneath the surface of daily life. The risk of being struck by a cart, or simply tripping on the uneven pavement and falling into the muck, was a daily reality. One had to develop a keen awareness of their surroundings, a sort of urban sixth sense, just to survive the journey from home to work. Your destination is likely a workshop, perhaps a potter's, where the dust of clay settles on everything, or a weaver's, where the rhythmic clack of the loom fills the air. Or perhaps you are bound for a construction site, where the back-breaking labor of lifting heavy stones and mixing mortar is your daily bread. The Roman economy, while sophisticated in many ways, relied heavily on manual labor. Whether you were a baker kneading dough in a hot, smoky oven, a blacksmith hammering metal in a deafening forge, a tanner working with foul-smelling hides, or a dockworker unloading ships at Ostia, the work was relentless, demanding, and often performed under the watchful eye of an overseer. Your hands, calloused and rough, are your most valuable tools, earning you just enough denarii to purchase a simple meal. Coarse bread, perhaps a handful of olives, and watered-down wine, a meager sustenance for a body constantly at work. Consider the sheer physical toll of such a life. A Roman plebeian's diet was largely vegetarian, consisting primarily of grains, legumes, and some vegetables. Meat was a luxury, rarely consumed. This diet, while providing basic sustenance, often lacked essential nutrients, contributing to widespread health issues. Life expectancy was significantly lower than today, with many not surviving past childhood. Those who did reach adulthood often suffered from chronic ailments, exacerbated by poor sanitation, inadequate nutrition, and the constant physical strain of their labor. Imagine the persistent aches in your joints, the fatigue that never truly leaves your bones, the dull hunger that gnaws at your stomach even after a meal. This was the baseline of existence for millions. Even within the confines of your humble existence, the omnipresent threats of Roman life loom large. Fire, a constant terror in a city built of wood and closely packed insulae, could consume your home and meager possessions in a single night. The Great Fire of Rome, though attributed to Nero, was merely the most catastrophic example of a common occurrence. Smaller fires were a daily threat, spreading rapidly through the densely packed, timber-framed buildings. Imagine the sudden shouts of alarm, the frantic scramble to save what little you possessed, the choking smoke, and the terrifying roar of the flames. The Roman authorities did have a fire brigade, the vigils, but their effectiveness was often limited by the sheer scale of the conflagrations and the narrowness of the streets. Disease, a silent predator, swept through the crowded tenements, claiming lives with ruthless efficiency. Without modern understanding of hygiene or medicine, even common ailments could prove fatal. Epidemics were frequent and devastating, exacerbated by the lack of clean water, poor waste disposal, and the close proximity of so many people. Imagine the feverish nights, the racking coughs, the despair of watching loved ones succumb to illnesses that today are easily treatable. The stench of sickness would hang heavy in the air, a constant reminder of life's precariousness. Funerals were a common sight, a grim procession through the streets, further emphasizing the fragility of existence. And crime, from petty theft to violent assault, was an ever-present shadow in the labyrinthine alleys. The darkness of night brought with it a different kind of danger. Without widespread street lighting, the city became a maze of shadows, perfect for opportunistic criminals. Robberies were common, and violence could erupt unexpectedly. Even during the day, pickpockets and con artists preyed on the unwary. Justice for the plebeian was often slow, inaccessible, and biased towards the wealthy. If you were wronged, your chances of redress were slim, and self-preservation became a primary concern. The constant threat of arbitrary violence, whether from criminals or even from the occasional heavy-handed soldier, added another layer of tension to daily life. Life for the Roman plebeian was a delicate balance, a constant struggle against forces both seen and unseen, a testament to resilience in the face of relentless hardship. Yet, amidst this struggle, there was community, a shared experience of survival that forged bonds, however tenuous, in the heart of the great city. Neighbors relied on neighbors, sharing meager resources, offering comfort in times of sorrow, and celebrating small joys. The public baths, though often crowded and noisy, served as a vital social hub, a place where distinctions of wealth and status could momentarily blur. The public games, the gladiatorial contests, and the chariot races provided a much-needed escape, a collective catharsis that momentarily lifted the burden of daily life. Even the local taverns, though humble, offered a place for camaraderie, a shared drink, and a moment of forgetfulness. These small moments of connection, these fleeting glimpses of shared humanity, were the threads that held the fabric of plebeian society together, allowing them to endure the grime and the grandeur of ancient Rome. This was the rhythm of their lives, a constant negotiation with hardship, a testament to the human capacity for adaptation. They were the silent majority, the foundation upon which the mighty Roman Empire was built, their sweat and toil fueling its expansion, their resilience sustaining its very existence. Their story, though often overshadowed by the grand narratives of emperors and generals, is perhaps the most profound, for it speaks to the universal human experience of striving, surviving, and finding meaning amidst the mundane. As we leave the bustling, often uncomfortable, world of the Roman plebeian, let us carry with us a deeper appreciation for the simple comforts of our own lives, and a quiet respect for those who built an empire from the ground up, one arduous day at a time. From the crowded, grimy streets of the plebeian, we now turn our attention to the gilded, yet often treacherous world of the Roman elite, specifically to the enigmatic figure of Gaius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, more commonly known as Caligula. His reign, spanning a mere 4 years, from 37 to 41 AD, remains one of the most debated and sensationalized periods in Roman history. Was he truly the mad tyrant depicted by ancient historians, a man who reveled in cruelty and debauchery, or was he a victim of political machinations and biased accounts? Imagine the stark contrast. From the struggle for daily survival to a life of unimaginable luxury and absolute power. Caligula, initially hailed as a promising young emperor, the son of the beloved Germanicus, quickly began to exhibit behaviors that shocked even the jaded Roman aristocracy. His early popularity, fueled by generous public games and the abolition of unpopular taxes, soon gave way to a reign marked by erratic decisions and increasingly bizarre acts. Let us first set the stage for Caligula's ascent. Born into the Julio-Claudian dynasty, he was the great-grandson of Augustus, the first Roman emperor, and the grandson of Tiberius, his predecessor. His early life was marked by tragedy and political intrigue. His father, Germanicus, a highly popular general, died under suspicious circumstances, leading to widespread belief that he was poisoned by Tiberius. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, and two of his brothers were later exiled and starved to death by Tiberius, who viewed them as threats. Young Gaius, nicknamed Caligula, meaning little boot, after the miniature soldier's boots he wore as a child while accompanying his father on campaigns, was brought up in the imperial household, witnessing firsthand the paranoia, suspicion, and ruthless power struggles that defined the court. This formative period, filled with loss and constant danger, undoubtedly shaped his character, perhaps contributing to the erratic and cruel tendencies he would later display. Upon Tiberius's death, Caligula, then 24 years old, was welcomed with immense enthusiasm by the Roman people and the Senate. He was seen as a breath of fresh air after the reclusive and often tyrannical rule of Tiberius. His initial actions were indeed promising. He released political prisoners, recalled exiles, and staged magnificent public spectacles. The Roman world rejoiced, believing a new golden age had dawned. Yet, this honeymoon period was remarkably short-lived. Within months, a severe illness, possibly a brain fever, seemed to fundamentally alter his personality. The once charming and popular prince transformed into a figure of unpredictable cruelty and megalomania. His lavish projects, though grand in scale, often seemed to serve his own ego more than the needs of the empire. The construction of two enormous floating bridges, one across the Bay of Baia, seemingly to mock a prophecy, and another across the Tiber, were spectacles of engineering and extravagance. The bridge across the Bay of Baia, a 2-mile-long pontoon bridge made of ships, was built for Caligula to ride across on horseback, fulfilling a prophecy that he would never ride a horse across the Bay of Baia. This act, while a display of imperial power and engineering prowess, was also a colossal waste of resources, draining the imperial treasury and contributing to a growing sense of unease among the senators and the populace. Imagine the sheer logistical challenge of assembling hundreds of ships, anchoring them, and then constructing a road surface across them, all for a single symbolic act of defiance against the prophecy. It was a spectacle designed to awe and intimidate, to demonstrate the emperor's absolute power over nature and fate itself. Perhaps the most enduring and scandalous tale surrounding Caligula involved his alleged incestuous relationships with his sisters, particularly Drusilla, whom he reportedly treated as a goddess. While the truth of these accusations remained shrouded in the mists of time and the biases of his detractors, they painted a picture of an emperor who defied all social and moral conventions, further alienating him from the traditional Roman values. Ancient historians, often writing decades or even centuries after the events, were prone to exaggeration and sensationalism, particularly when describing emperors they disliked. However, the sheer volume and consistency of these allegations suggest that at the very least, Caligula's behavior was perceived as highly unconventional and scandalous by his contemporaries. He elevated his sisters to unprecedented positions of honor, even having their images appear on coins, a privilege usually reserved for empresses or goddesses. This blurring of lines between family, divinity, and imperial power was deeply unsettling to the conservative Roman aristocracy. And then, there is the infamous story of Incitatus, his favorite horse, whom he allegedly appointed as a consul. While many historians now believe this was a cynical jest, a pointed mockery of the Roman Senate, it cemented Caligula's reputation as a madman, a ruler who held the venerable institutions of Rome in contempt. He would reportedly invite Incitatus to dinner parties, feeding him gilded oats and wine from golden goblets, a spectacle that must have both amused and horrified his guests. This act, whether literal or symbolic, was a profound insult to the Roman Senate, the ancient body that had once held supreme power. By elevating a horse to such a prestigious position, Caligula was not only demonstrating his contempt for the senators, but also asserting his absolute authority, showing that he could do as he pleased. regardless of tradition or decorum. It was a calculated act of humiliation, designed to strip the Senate of its remaining dignity and underscore their subservience to the emperor. His reign was also marked by increasing paranoia and brutality. Those who dared to question his authority or incurred his displeasure often met swift and gruesome ends. Executions became more frequent, and the emperor's unpredictable temper instilled fear throughout the court. The once beloved prince transformed into a figure of terror, his actions seemingly driven by a capricious will rather than sound judgment. He would often engage in cruel games, forcing senators to run for miles before him, or executing individuals for minor offenses. His cruelty was not always driven by malice, but sometimes by a perverse sense of humor or a desire to demonstrate his absolute power. He famously wished that the Roman people had but one neck, so he could sever it with a single blow. This chilling statement, whether literal or rhetorical, perfectly encapsulates the terrifying capriciousness of his rule. The atmosphere in the imperial court became one of constant fear and suspicion, where a misplaced word or an unintentional glance could lead to a swift and brutal end. The financial policies of Caligula were equally erratic and destructive. His lavish spending on public games, building projects, and personal indulgences quickly depleted the vast treasury accumulated by Tiberius. To replenish his coffers, he resorted to increasingly desperate and cruel measures. He imposed heavy taxes, confiscated the property of wealthy citizens, and even forced senators to bequeath their estates to him. He would often accuse individuals of treason, execute them, and then seize their assets, a convenient way to eliminate perceived enemies and acquire wealth simultaneously. This rapaciousness further alienated the Roman elite and contributed to the growing desire for his removal. The culmination of this controversial reign came on January 24, 41 AD, when Caligula was brutally assassinated by a conspiracy of Praetorian guards and senators. The plot, led by Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Praetorian Guard, whom Caligula had frequently mocked for his effeminacy, was meticulously planned. Caligula was ambushed in a secluded passage within the imperial palace after attending a theatrical performance. He was stabbed repeatedly, his body mutilated, a violent end to a tumultuous rule. His wife, Caesonia, and his young daughter, Julia Drusilla, were also murdered, ensuring that no direct heirs remained. His death, a violent end to a tumultuous rule, brought a temporary sigh of relief to many, but it also plunged Rome into a brief period of uncertainty before the ascension of his uncle, Claudius. The legacy of Caligula remains a complex tapestry of historical fact, political propaganda, and enduring legend, a cautionary tale of absolute power and its corrupting influence, a story that continues to fascinate and disturb. Was he truly insane, or was he a brilliant, albeit cruel, satirist of the Roman system, deliberately pushing the boundaries of imperial power to expose its inherent absurdities? The answer, perhaps, lies somewhere in between, a chilling reminder of the fine line between genius and madness, and the profound impact a single individual can have on the course of history. From the volatile world of imperial power, we now drift into the realm of enduring mystery, a historical enigma that has captivated scholars and storytellers for centuries. The vanishing of the Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth Spanish Legion. In the early 2nd century, a veteran Roman legion, a formidable fighting force of nearly 5,000 men, seemingly disappeared from the historical record, leaving behind a void that continues to fuel speculation and debate. Imagine a legion, hardened by campaigns across the vast Roman Empire, its eagles proudly carried through countless battles, its soldiers disciplined and experienced. The Ninth Legion had a long and distinguished history, serving in various provinces, from Hispania to Pannonia, before being stationed in Britain. Their last confirmed presence in the historical record places them in Ebracum around 108 A. Let us first understand the nature of a Roman legion. A legion was not merely a collection of soldiers. It was a highly organized, self-sufficient fighting machine, a miniature army in itself, comprising around 5,000 heavily armed and rigorously trained infantrymen, supported by cavalry, engineers, artillery, and logistical personnel. A legion was a formidable force, capable of conquering and holding vast territories. Each legion had its own distinct identity, its own battle honors, and its own eagle standard, a sacred symbol that represented the very soul of the unit. The loss of an eagle was considered a catastrophic disgrace, a stain on the legion's honor that could only be redeemed by its recovery. The Legio IX Hispana, having served with distinction for centuries, was a proud and seasoned unit, its veterans having seen action across the breadth of the Roman world. And then, silence. The legion simply ceases to appear in official Roman records after this point. No clear account of their disbandment, no record of a catastrophic defeat, no mention of their transfer to another frontier. This abrupt cessation of information has given rise to several compelling and often dramatic theories regarding their fate. The Roman Empire was meticulous in its record-keeping, especially concerning its legions, the very backbone of its power. The sudden and complete absence of the Ninth Legion from these records is what makes its disappearance so perplexing and intriguing. One of the most popular and enduring theories suggests that the Ninth Legion was annihilated in Britain, perhaps during a fierce uprising by native tribes. The harsh, untamed landscapes of Caledonia were a constant challenge to Roman authority, and a large-scale ambush or a prolonged, desperate battle could have wiped out the entire force. The discovery of a few scattered Roman artifacts north of Hadrian's Wall, coupled with the absence of further records, lends a certain weight to this grim possibility. Imagine the fog-shrouded moors, the sudden war cries, the desperate struggle against an unseen enemy, and the slow, inevitable fading of Roman might into the wild British landscape. The tribes of Caledonia, such as the Caledoni and the Mahitai, were fierce and unyielding, constantly resisting Roman expansion. A legion marching deep into their territory, perhaps on a punitive expedition or an attempt to establish new forts, could easily have been cut off and overwhelmed by superior numbers and guerrilla tactics. The harsh weather, unfamiliar terrain, and the ferocity of the native warriors would have presented a formidable challenge even to a veteran legion. The archaeological evidence, though sparse, does point to some Roman military activity north of the wall around this period and the discovery of Roman military equipment in areas that were never fully subdued by Rome fuels the imagination of a desperate last stand. Another theory posits that the legion was not destroyed, but rather transferred to the east, perhaps to deal with conflicts on the Parthian frontier. Roman legions were often redeployed across the empire as strategic needs dictated. The Parthian Empire, Rome's perennial rival in the east, was a constant source of conflict, and legions were frequently moved to reinforce the eastern borders. However, there is no definitive archaeological or textual evidence to support their presence in the east after their last known stationing in Britain. This theory relies on the idea that records might have been lost or that their fate was simply not deemed significant enough to be meticulously documented in a period of constant military movement. The sheer vastness of the Roman Empire meant that legions were constantly on the move, and administrative oversights or the destruction of records in later conflicts could account for a missing legion. Some scholars have pointed to a possible inscription found in the east that might refer to a detachment of the Ninth, but this evidence is far from conclusive and does not account for the entire legion. A third, less dramatic, but equally plausible explanation suggests that the Ninth Legion was simply disbanded, its soldiers integrated into other legions or discharged after their service. This was not uncommon in the Roman army, especially for legions that had suffered heavy casualties or whose strategic purpose had diminished. However, the complete lack of any official record of such a disbandment particularly for a legion of its stature, remains a perplexing anomaly. Roman military administration was highly bureaucratic, and the disbandment of an entire legion would typically be meticulously documented, with records of transfers, discharges, and the fate of its eagle and standards. The absence of such records for the Ninth Legion is what makes this theory, while plausible, still unsatisfying for those seeking a definitive answer. Perhaps the Legion suffered such heavy losses in a series of engagements that it was no longer viable as a distinct fighting unit, and its remnants were quietly absorbed into other legions without a formal disbandment decree. The enduring mystery of the lost Ninth Legion serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of historical records and the vast gaps in our knowledge of the ancient world. It invites us to contemplate the lives of these soldiers, their hopes and fears, and their ultimate disappearance into the mists of time. Whether they met a heroic end on a distant battlefield, were quietly absorbed into the vast machinery of the empire, or simply faded from memory, their story continues to echo through the centuries, a quiet testament to the untold narratives of history. The allure of the unknown, the tantalizing possibility of a dramatic last stand or forgotten transfer, keeps the legend of the Ninth Legion alive. It reminds us that history is not a static collection of facts, but a dynamic narrative, constantly being reinterpreted and debated as new evidence emerges or old theories are re-examined. The silence surrounding the Ninth Legion is perhaps its most powerful legacy, a blank space in the historical record that allows our imaginations to wander, to fill in the gaps with tales of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless march of time. And in that silence, we find a deeper appreciation for the painstaking work of archaeologists and historians, who piece together the fragments of the past, striving to bring clarity to the shadows of antiquity. Having journeyed through the harsh realities of plebeian life and the shadowy mysteries of lost legions, we now ascend to the pinnacle of Roman society to experience, if only for a fleeting moment, the opulent existence of a Roman senator. This is a world far removed from the cramped insulae and the dusty workshops, a realm of sprawling villas, exquisite banquets, and the subtle dance of political power. Imagine your morning as a Roman senator. The first rays of dawn, rather than signaling a day of toil, usher in a period of dignified activity. Your villa, perhaps nestled on one of Rome's 7 hills or overlooking the Bay of Naples, is already stirring with the quiet efficiency of slaves. Your personal attendants assist you with your toga, a garment of intricate folds that speaks volumes of your status. Your day begins not with a struggle for sustenance, but with the ritual of the salutatio, where clients, freedmen, and those seeking your patronage gather to pay their respects and seek your counsel. You dispense advice, promises, and sometimes small favors, solidifying your network of influence. Let us paint a more vivid picture of this senatorial morning. The salutatio was a cornerstone of Roman social and political life. As a senator, your home would be a hive of activity from the earliest hours. Clients ranging from humble plebeians seeking legal aid or a handout, to ambitious equestrians hoping for a political alliance, would queue patiently, sometimes for hours, to gain a brief audience. Each client would offer a respectful greeting, and in return, you, the patron, would offer a small sum of money or a meal, along with advice or a promise of support. This daily ritual reinforced the hierarchical structure of Roman society, binding individuals through a complex web of mutual obligations and patronage. It was a delicate dance of power and deference, where even a seemingly insignificant gesture could carry profound political weight. Imagine the murmuring crowd, the hushed conversations, the subtle jostling for position, all under your watchful eye, as you, the senator, dispensed your wisdom and your largesse. After these morning duties, your litter, carried by strong slaves, transports you through the bustling streets, a stark contrast to the plebeian's perilous walk. You are insulated from the grime and noise, a figure of authority and wealth. Your destination is the Forum, the vibrant heart of Roman public life. Here, amidst the grand temples and basilicas, you engage in political discourse, debate legislation, and perhaps deliver a stirring oration. The air hums with the energy of power, ambition, and the constant negotiation of alliances. Your words carry weight, shaping the destiny of the Republic or the Empire. The Forum was not merely a marketplace. It was the political, religious, and commercial center of Rome. As a senator, your presence here was expected, a visible demonstration of your engagement with public life. You might spend hours in the Senate House, debating laws, discussing foreign policy, or prosecuting rivals. The art of rhetoric was paramount, and senators honed their skills in public speaking, using eloquent language and persuasive arguments to sway their colleagues. Imagine the impassioned speeches, the strategic alliances formed and broken, the whispers of conspiracy, all unfolding within the shadow of ancient monuments. Beyond the Senate, you might visit the law courts, where you would act as a patron for your clients, or attend religious ceremonies at the temples. The Forum was a stage upon which the drama of Roman power was constantly enacted, and as a senator, you were one of its principal actors. The afternoon is a time for leisure, a well-deserved respite from the demands of public life. Many senators would retreat to the public baths, not merely for hygiene, but as a social institution. Imagine the warmth of the caldarium, the invigorating plunge into the frigidarium, the gentle scraping of the strigil, removing the day's impurities. Here, amidst the steam and the murmur of conversation, you might exercise, engage in philosophical discussions with fellow senators, or simply relax, attended by slaves who cater to your every need. The Roman baths were far more than just places to wash. They were vast complexes offering a wide range of activities, gymnasiums for exercise, libraries for reading, massage rooms, and even food stalls. They were democratic spaces where, for a small fee, citizens of all social classes could mingle. Those senators would often have their own private sections or attend at less crowded times. For a senator, the baths offered a unique opportunity for informal networking and political maneuvering. Deals could be struck, alliances forged, and reputations subtly enhanced or undermined amidst the relaxing steam and the communal atmosphere. Imagine the quiet conversations in the tepidarum, the strategic whispers exchanged while being massaged, the subtle display of one's physical prowess in the gymnasium. It was a place of both physical rejuvenation and social lubrication, an essential part of the senatorial routine. As evening approaches, the highlight of the senatorial day often begins, the convivium or dinner party. This is not merely a meal, but an elaborate social ritual, a display of wealth, taste, and intellectual prowess. Reclining on luxurious couches, you are served a multi-course feast of exotic foods. Roasted peacock, dormice stuffed with nuts, oysters from distant shores, all accompanied by fine wines from the choicest vineyards. The conversation flows as freely as the wine, ranging from politics and philosophy to literature and gossip. Musicians might play soft melodies, and dancers might entertain, creating an atmosphere of refined indulgence that lasts late into the night. The Roman Convivium was a carefully orchestrated affair, designed to impress and entertain. The number of courses could be extensive, featuring delicacies from across the vast Roman Empire. Imagine the array of flavors, the rich aromas, the delicate textures of dishes prepared by skilled chefs. Beyond the food, the company was paramount. Guests would be carefully selected, often including influential senators, renowned philosophers, poets, and even favored clients. The conversation was expected to be witty, intellectual, and engaging, a demonstration of one's erudition and social grace. Slaves would attend to every need, pouring wine, serving dishes, and ensuring the comfort of the guests. Entertainment might include recitations of poetry, musical performances, or even philosophical debates. These dinner parties were not just social gatherings. They were crucial arenas for political networking, for solidifying friendships, and for subtly asserting one's social standing. The lavishness of the feast, the quality of the wine, and the intellectual caliber of the conversation all contributed to a senator's reputation and influence. This opulent life, however, was not without its own set of anxieties. The constant need to maintain one's social standing, the intricate web of political rivalries, the ever-present threat of imperial displeasure, and the financial burdens of maintaining such a lifestyle all weighed upon the Roman senator. The political landscape of Rome, particularly during the Empire, was a treacherous one. Emperors could be capricious, and a senator who fell out of favor could quickly lose everything, including their life. The constant need to navigate these political currents, to form alliances, and to avoid making powerful enemies was a source of perpetual stress. Furthermore, maintaining the lavish lifestyle expected of a senator was incredibly expensive. The upkeep of villas, the large retinue of slaves, the public displays of generosity, and the expenses associated with political campaigns all required vast sums of money. Many senators, despite their apparent wealth, were constantly on the brink of financial ruin, forced to borrow heavily or engage in questionable financial dealings to maintain their status. The pressure to conform to societal expectations, to always appear prosperous and influential, was immense. Yet in stark contrast to the daily struggle of the plebeian, their lives were defined by comfort, influence, and a profound sense of their place at the apex of the Roman world, a world they both shaped and were shaped by. They were the architects of Roman law, the commanders of its armies, and the custodians of its traditions. Their decisions, made in the Senate House or whispered over a glass of wine at a Convivium, reverberated across an empire that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia. Their legacy, etched in marble and codified in law, continues to influence our world today. As we conclude our exploration of the Roman senator's life, we are left with a profound appreciation for the complexities of power, the allure of luxury, and the enduring human desire for influence and prestige. Their world, though long vanished, offers a mirror to our own, reflecting the timeless interplay of ambition, privilege, and the relentless march of history. And so, our gentle journey through ancient Rome draws to a close. We have walked the grimy, bustling streets alongside the Plebeian, felt the weight of their daily struggle, and witnessed their quiet resilience. We have peered into the tumultuous reign of an emperor, a figure both fascinating and terrifying, whose story continues to echo through the corridors of power. We have pondered the enduring mystery of a lost legion, a silent testament to the vastness of history and the limits of our knowledge. And finally, we have reclined in the opulent villas of the senators, experiencing a life of luxury, influence, and intellectual pursuit. As the echoes of Roman life begin to fade, allow your mind to gently return to the present. Notice the comfort of your surroundings, the quiet hum of your own world, the stark contrasts we have explored, the struggle for survival versus the indulgence of the elite, the brutality of power versus the enduring human spirit, serve as a quiet reminder of the passage of time and the ever-present threads that connect our lives to those who came before us. History, in its essence, is not merely a collection of dates and names, but a tapestry woven from the countless lives lived, the dreams dreamt, and the challenges overcome. It is a gentle whisper from the past, inviting us to reflect, to understand, and perhaps to find a deeper appreciation for the quiet rhythms of our own existence. The stories we have shared tonight, from the cramped Insula to the Grand Forum, from the capricious whims of an emperor to the silent disappearance of a legion, are but fragments of a much larger narrative. Yet, within these fragments, we find universal truths about the human condition, the enduring struggle for survival, the intoxicating allure of power, the persistent quest for meaning, and the quiet dignity found in everyday life. Consider the sheer scale of time we have traversed. The The Rumang Empire, in its various forms, spanned over 1,000 years, a testament to its remarkable adaptability and resilience. Yet even the mightiest empires eventually fade, leaving behind only echoes and ruins. This impermanence, however, is not a cause for despair, but rather a gentle invitation to appreciate the fleeting beauty of the present moment. The anxieties and triumphs of the Romans, though separated by millennia, are not so different from our own. They too grappled with questions of justice, morality, and the meaning of a good life. They too sought comfort in community, solace in tradition, and purpose in their daily endeavors. So, as the last vestiges of ancient Rome recede into the peaceful darkness, may your thoughts drift, your breath deepen, and your mind find solace in the quiet contemplation of time's gentle flow. Let the images we have conjured, the bustling streets, the flickering oil lamps, the solemn senators, the marching legions, settle softly into the quiet corners of your mind. Allow the calming rhythm of history to lull you into a state of profound relaxation. The past, in its vastness and complexity, offers a unique kind of comfort, a reminder that all things pass, and that even in the midst of chaos, there is an underlying order, a persistent rhythm to the universe. Rest now, and let the whispers of history guide you into a peaceful slumber, knowing that the stories of humanity, in all their varied forms, continue to unfold endlessly, quietly, through the vast expanse of time.